Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is a podcast dedicated to helping individuals have a successful accounting, bookkeeping, or tax business. The intent of the podcast is to give you, as the owner-operators of your companies, the insights that you need that may be related to topics such as marketing, sales, pricing, taking on new clients through the onboarding process, client relations, what services to offer, and so much more. The intent is literally to invite guests on the show and have them share their tips and suggestions of what advice they have for us as accounting professionals to really service the clients that we have and get paid what we're worth. Now, I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center, and for more than 20 years, I've been working with accounting professionals to literally help them start and build their accounting businesses, deciding what services to offer, helping to determine their pricing, and most importantly, grow the businesses they desire, whether it be that of a solo entrepreneur working on their own, or more importantly, growing a business, training their staff, and building a company that can thrive without them. Now, whichever case you may be, you're going to love our guest today. Shannon Beck happens to be a person that I've known for a number of years, and he is the president of Professional Accounting Solutions, Inc. Shannon is a management accountant. He also is a professional bookkeeper and profit expert. He graduated from Brigham Young University back in 2001 and co-founded his company in 2004 with his wife, Tina, who is the vice president and CFO of Professional Accounting Solutions. He has served as an official judge for Growing America Ventures to support entrepreneurs, and he hosted his first event with Billionaire Alan E as the keynote speaker. He has been running Professional Accounting Solutions now for over 17 years, and Shannon loves working with small to medium-sized businesses who want to increase their financial performance. So Shannon, welcome to the phone call.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
It is great to have you here. So here's what I'd like to do, just to give everybody a little bit of a background. Tell us about your introduction to the accounting profession. What got you into this wonderful profession that we're in?
Great question. When I first started, I was a recruiter and really working and doing recruiting for the accounting and finance industry. And I had worked as a backup finance manager for dealerships. I had gone to school. I had taken several different courses in accounting. And my wife was also an accountant. And she had just had a baby. And so she decided that she wanted to work from home. And so through that process, she started picking up a few clients. And as she did so, we noticed that we could probably make more money working from home than we could, working for somebody else. And that's when I decided to step that up, help her to get some more clients. We did some networking, went to different networking events, built some relationships. And then we started to pick up some new clients, and it just started taking off from there.
You know, I actually have a similar background to you, and this is going to be kind of interesting. I worked also as a recruiter headhunter. I worked for Robert Half International in their account temps division. What company was it that you were working for?
Same one. Yeah.
That's the one I thought. I actually was remembering that. So with that experience, obviously you got into the accounting space, your wife having done it as well. And what kind of caused you both, other than the fact that you had the newborn and such, what caused you to transition your career and actually, rather than place people, become one yourself?
Well, we really took a look at, first of all, my wife graduated in accounting with a near 4.0 GPA. And, I went to BYU. I had several accounting and finance classes that I had taken, but I wasn't an accountant at the time. I didn't go to school to become an accountant. My degree was actually in communications. And so I took kind of a different road, that path. And then through the process and getting started, we got connected with you and your team there with Universal Accounting School and the Accounting Center there. And my wife decided, hey, we need to get a few more certifications, a few more training courses under our belt. And so, from there, we went through that program, both of us. And of course, you have to do the accounting for 12 different types of industries, and you've got to score a 90 or higher on those tests in order to pass. I believe it was 90 or 95. It's been a while. I can't remember.
It's still 90.
It's still 90. Okay. So we both did that. Both of us scored really well on those tests. And And then we really took a look at it and said, we don't really want to have a boss. We don't want to be working for other people. We want to be entrepreneurs. We want to start our own business. And with that being kind of the background that we had, and I knew that with my wife too, I essentially have a personal tutor there with me all the time to help to further train me. And so I went further into getting some more training, learning how to become a management accountant, and we just kept building that business. And as we did, we started to really focus, or tried to focus on, going after the construction industry and specializing in that area. And so that's kind of the direction that we headed. And we really didn't know at the beginning what we were doing. We did need some, good advice and direction. And, Alan Bostrom was very helpful as one of our mentors to help us kind of get started, and David and yourself being there. And that really helped us kind of get going. But it was a little scary, a little nerve-wracking at the beginning, trying to pick up new clients, trying to find new ways to get business. How do we price things out? We need to build a website. We've got to get our business cards. We've got to get things into place. There's just so many different aspects of the operations on it that we just hadn't figured out yet. And so we had to start stepping through that and figuring that out.
Those challenges that you're describing are very common. I mean, it's not unheard of to be asked how to best market or sell the services. As you mentioned, price the services, lots of very common questions. And as you went through that, you obviously built your business, and you mentioned that you chose a niche. You got into the construction space, working with the trades and so forth. So I'm kind of curious, what are the services that you offer really differentiate you from your other peers? What is it that's unique about your business?
Well, through the process of working with a lot of these contractors, we noticed that a lot of the contractors were really looking for something in between the bookkeeping, just the data entry and entering the information, and just giving the taxes, giving the books to the CPA to do the taxes, the income tax. And they really weren't getting the help that they were really seeking for. I noticed that they really wanted some upper management, more, management accounting type services, CFO type level services to help them increase performance, to be able to understand what the numbers mean. They just really wanted to improve and put more controls in place when it comes to their profitability with the business. And so we started adding more CFO or management accounting services. And we really, as we worked with a lot of the different, construction clients at that time, we noticed that with a lot of their bidding that they were doing, that as they did a bid, a lot of times on their change outs, they would screw up on that bidding and they end up losing money. Mm-hmm. And so through that process, we started putting together another calculator that we custom made along with that. So they would go ahead and run their normal bids, and then we would run it through our calculator system. And then we would tell them, don't bid below this amount here. If you bid below, you're going to lose money.
Yeah, that is excellent.
And then if you bid, you can bid within this range. If you get too high here, you may lose that bid. And so that really changed things.
So what you're doing here is you're really specializing in the services that you're providing that's unique to that niche. You're really accommodating the needs that they have, and you've addressed something that you saw as a recurring issue that they're facing, and you brought a solution to the table.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, with that, we noticed that there was a lot more need, especially dealing with cost of goods sold and the percentages and controlling those costs in relation to the different services that they were providing that were very specific for each different type of service they would provide. And so we started looking at how can we control that percentage as a percentage of the income mm-hmm. with that particular cost of goods sold item, so that we could figure out how to control their actual cost of goods sold to get the cost of goods sold down to 40%, for example. and then taking a look at their overall expenses and trying to control that down to about 30%. And sometimes it's ranged between 30, 35 with a little fluctuation. And once we started putting together budgets, started putting together the cash flow, managing that cash flow, started controlling a lot of how they operate. And sometimes it meant increasing prices. Sometimes it meant making a few adjustments or maybe going after a bigger client, a bigger job, to take a look at what they could do to improve that financial performance in order to hit the goal that they were looking for as far as their overall profitability. And we would do benchmarking, for example, to check and find out, well, what is the industry typically doing within the construction industry, as far as their net worth. And we noticed that most of them had about a 10% net worth. But really, every company has its own DNA. And so you could do a lot better than 10% in the construction industry. You just need to know how to structure it and how to control it in order to bring those net number percentages up. And so once they're put into place and they're controlled, the construction companies that we worked with were able to accomplish a lot of their goals, and that made a huge difference for them.
The thing that I love about your explanation of all this is you've obviously moved beyond just the bookkeeping, and I would even say beyond the accounting, to customize this experience in the niche that you've identified. You're bringing to the table resources and tools that this business owner needs. That's not just the financial reports, but it's the ability to be more competitive in their bidding and ensure with confidence a greater profit margin. And at the same time, you're doing the benchmarking, as you described, to help do a comparative analysis against their industry norms. There's a lot going on here behind the scenes. So I'm kind of curious, how do you price your services for these clients that you're working with?
So a lot of what we do is we take a look at how many bank accounts do they have, how many credit cards, how many loans do they have, what transactions are processing through, their books. And we also want to take a look at what are they asking us to do? What do they want from us? How much time and effort are we estimating that's going to take to do that? Is there anything else that they need that may need to be customized for them? We like to find out what's the pain, what's the one thing that really they just hate doing, they don't like doing, they want us to solve that problem. And if it's something that we can solve, we're certainly going to do that. And so we really base it off the complexity of the business. And for example, we have retroactive accounting. If they need their books cleaned up and brought up to date, that's typically going to be on an hourly basis for that round. And we charge about $65 to $85 an hour for that cleanup work to bring their books up to date. Once we have that up to date, we know exactly what's processing through their books. We understand and know how many transactions are going through that. And then we charge 2.5, if you think about that number, 2.5 times every transaction that goes through there, to get an idea of what that cost of that range will be. Now, that can fluctuate a little bit for those transactions. Some months are a little bit higher than others. And so you really have to take a look at a full 12 months if you can. At least, I'd like to have at least 3 to 4 months. Mm-hmm. But if you can get 12 months, that's even better. And kind of figure out what's the average transactions that process through their books on a regular basis. And then from there, we'll go ahead and we'll price that out. And so, at the beginning when we first started, many of our companies were smaller. They only had, they were probably only about $300 each. I was only charging maybe $1 per transaction. And we just weren't making the kind of money we were wanting to make. Mm-hmm. And so we started doing the same thing with ourselves that we would do with other companies. How much do we want to make? What's the net profit percentage that we're looking for here? What do we want to accomplish here? And how can we design the pricing in such a way that allows us to be able to make the kind of profitability that we want? And so, we took a look at our competitors. We wanted to find out, what is our competitors doing? How are they pricing? What would be acceptable in the marketplace? And then we started taking a look at, well, what do they offer and what are we offering? What are we offering that's different? And then we started noticing, okay, with each industry, with the construction or with other industries, you can, once you understand you've done this enough and you've had enough companies that you're working with, you can start packaging. You can start figuring out about what that average is, and you can start putting different packages together. And so we started through that process, and eventually, we got hit by the market crash in 2008 when it hit all construction companies. And we were working with companies like Billionaire Homes, for example, they were out there in Daybreak, and they had all kinds of properties that they were sitting on when that market crashed. And so that was a time that we were really taking a look at this going, how can we help these guys right now? These guys are sitting on homes. They can't get them sold. They can't figure out, for the price that they're looking for, they can't figure out what they need to do. And so as we kind of brainstormed together, my wife and I, we decided that we need to just let them know, listen, it's going to be a hard time right now, but you're just going to have to sell them at cost, get them off your books so that you're not bleeding anymore. Just get them off your books.
Yeah.
Give them away, at cost. Just get them off your books. You don't want them on your books. And that saved a lot of the companies that we were working with, because they are able to just, they had to kind of take that pride away a little bit, if you will. They had to really take a look at, dang, I'm not going to make a lot of money on this. I'm just trying to get my costs back out. And at that time, they just had to get rid of them so they would stop bleeding. And that saved them, especially with Billionaire Homes. They had a lot of properties. And so once they did that, got those sold, it allowed them to kind of come back in the market when the market started to, rebound or come back. And from there, we went back into those internal controls again. And, this allowed them to continue to profit the way they needed to profit.
So there's a few things in there that I'd want to address. One is your own pricing. You did the same calculation that you're doing for your clients to determine how you should be billing your clients in the business that you're performing. Mm-hmm. And that really helped you become a little bit more intelligent and deliberate about what strategies you're using. You're working on your business rather than just in it. You're thinking ahead. And so that was nice. And with the business, as you're describing it, you kind of talked about the economic trends that go on. There are ebbs and flows in the economy, and we'll have clients that, honestly, one client may be doing phenomenally well in a certain economic situation, another could be struggling, and then the economy switches or swaps, and the one that was struggling before is doing phenomenally well, and the one that was doing great is now struggling. And so what we're finding is, as accounting professionals, you're right, we need to actually be able to assess situations and give some advice on how they can maybe deal with the cash flow situations that they're struggling with. What can we do to actually help them with the money in the bank? There are different things that we can offer as suggestions for them to consider and then decide what they want to do in their company to meet the needs that they have professionally. So I like how you're getting involved with the business, and they value your opinion because you're someone that they now trust and see as their strategic trusted advisor. Now, with that being said, let's talk about marketing. What have you done or are doing to get clients? What's been effective for you?
The one thing that's different that we do from other people is we actually don't spend a lot of time marketing online. We don't waste a lot of money with online marketing. A lot of people will do PPC, SEO. I think that's great if you want to, keep putting money towards that. They'll do social media. They may do behavioral marketing campaigns or programmatic type campaigns. There's a lot of things that you can do. ClickFunnels. I'm actually rebuilding my site right now, my website, and we're going to add some ClickFunnels. So we are going to start doing some connections there through LinkedIn and ClickFunnels. But the best way that we found, if you want to get word of mouth, is you want to take a look at different groups. For example, when that market crashed for us, we had to start looking at other industries that we could start doing business with besides just construction. So we got into working with dentists, working with medical doctors, working with chiropractors, e-commerce, and restaurants. And those were the kind of the main companies we started to focus on. And with dentists, for example, we noticed that they have what's called MSOs or DSOs and MSOs. So dental solutions organizations or management solution organizations. So those organizations typically have a whole group of dental practices, multiple dental practices. And in the process in working with them, they may test you out on one dental practice kind of to see how you do. Once you've proven yourself in that process, then they'll start to give you another one and another one and another one. And we've had clients give us 17 practices all at once.
Wow.
Which is kind of difficult.
Yeah.
Hard to handle, hard to manage. I had to hire more people to handle that. But you can imagine how much more powerful that is if you're working with people that already have a relationship. For example, we have people that already had strong relationships with a lot of these dentists and these MSOs and DSOs. And so working together with them, they actually market for you. And they'll help to bring those clients because they're really looking to come in, help turn these dental practices around, and then some of them will use them to resell those dental practices. Sometimes they just want to buy up multiple practices and they want to manage all of those practices. And so they become the management team, and the dentist can just do their job and not have to worry about managing their dental practice from an accounting perspective and from a management perspective. They'll do it for them. And we started working with other companies like Dental Intel and, different organizations, for example, like that help, through that process. We were just getting business by word of mouth.
I love it. One of the things that you're describing there is obviously a golden goose. The golden goose in networking, marketing, selling is essentially who's that person that is a natural fit that isn't a competitor of yours, but it complements the services you're doing. And in addition to these different organizations that you've mentioned, many people will share that they join associations, the Home Builders Association, just because of the trade conversation we're having now. Or maybe it's working with a person like a merchant company that does merchant services. Each of these types of entities work with business owners, have lots of business clients, and maybe in a position where they're needing to now refer individuals that need bookkeeping to you, the accounting to you. And all of a sudden, that relationship becomes very lucrative, and it's something you're able to reciprocate oftentimes too. So that's a great example of a golden goose. I love that. Let's talk about challenges. You've been in business long enough with the growth, with the changes in the economy that you've experienced. Give us an example of a challenge you faced and how you actually overcame it in your business.
Like what I mentioned earlier is, when the market crashed, that was really tough because you got a lot of construction companies, for example, that at that time, they were struggling with the market, trying to stay afloat. And some of them just couldn't make it, no matter what we did to try to help them. And so the market it was like having the rug pulled out from underneath them. Right. On top of that, they couldn't pay us. We had already done the work. I had employees that were doing the work at the time as well, and I still had to pay my employees. Right. And so with the construction companies that couldn't make it, with that, obviously that made it difficult for us as well, because now we're losing some clients for specializing in that construction industry. Nobody wants to get things up and started during that time. They don't want to hire accountants. It makes it difficult. So like I said, we had to think outside the box. And instead of just specializing in just construction, we had to decide, well, what markets are doing well? Which ones, which industries are still doing well even in this marketplace? And what changes can they make? And so we decided, well, we know the dental industry is doing well. We know the medical industry is doing well. And so we started going after some of those. The chiropractors we noticed were doing well still. So we started going after those different markets and building different relationships from there. So that was one struggle that we had to figure out. We had to learn. We had to understand their industry. We had to learn more about the processes that they go through. We had to be able to learn how to speak their language and the terminology. And we just had to make some adjustments. In building my website, for example, when I first started, I didn't really want to pay somebody to help to build my website. So I got on with WordPress, I figured out how to build my own website, and I went through the process of building my own website, my first website. And I built my own website and customized that. I had to, hire a few people to do some coding from Fiverr and some other, different types of, just using different types of apps, and kind of seeking or doing some research on my own to figure out how to get that up and going. And then I figured it out and I built it, designed it, and we've been using that same website ever since. And right now is the first time in 17 years that I finally decided I need to put a professional website together.
That's funny. Well, I can definitely see a lot of people listening relating to what you're describing. There are those things that we try to do ourselves. So here's something that I took from your comment a moment ago is there's a lot of talk about niching, and niching is obviously specializing in a certain industry or profession. But what you realized, having been in business as long as you have, is sometimes those niches will go through changes within the economy that causes you to have to adapt, and you've got to be willing to pivot. And hopefully you're staying attuned as to what's going on in the industry, that you can see whether or not that need's going to take place. And it's not that you abandon the niche, it's just that now you actually go after something else. And you can, over the course of time, now have two niches or expertises that you're able to focus on. So I like how you describe that. Let's talk about client relations and retention. What do you think is unique about how you retain your clients and the relationship you have with them?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. When it comes to working with your clients, most people in business, I've noticed, they really have a problem with building good customer service relationships. And most of the time, they're just after the sale. They just want to hurry and get in, get the money, and get out. And I think that's a very bad idea. When you're working with any type of business, you have to understand these are real people with real relationships, with real families, real things going on in their life. They have questions, they have concerns. They're going to look to you as a mentor. They're going to ask you lots of questions. How can you help them in one area or another? And so as I work with them and I build that relationship, first, I have to prove myself as an accountant to them. So they need to know that I understand accounting, I understand debits and credits, I understand what I'm doing, and I can do the job that I need to do. Once I can show that I've done the job and they have that trust with me, then they want to know, well, what can you do to help us perform at a higher level? How can we increase our financial performance? And then I go through that process in helping them. And we use tools, for example, like Fathom, HQ. You can use that. You can use Cashflow Tool, some of these other software systems that provides different visuals and will provide and let them know what some of their financial ratios are, help them understand their KPIs, how to keep those in control, help them to understand that. So you have time to be able to spend time with them, to educate them, to teach them, to help them become a better business owner, a better manager. Over time, as you're doing that, you're starting to build relationships, and they start telling you about their family and other situations that might be going on and the different decisions that they're trying to make. And they want a little more help, not only through business, but sometimes it's personal. And, just recently, for example, I had one of my clients, his wife just passed away, and they had a funeral. And I went to that funeral, and at the funeral, I met both, there's two owners of the company. I met with both of them. I gave them a hug and I let them know how much I cared about them. And they really appreciated that I was there for that funeral. And, afterwards, the son who works with his father there was out in the hall. And we got talking. We were just having a big discussion. His relatives, family members were coming through. And he would look up and he would say hi to them, give them a hug, let them kind of pass through, and went back into the conversation with me. And he wanted to just stay and keep talking to me because he has that really good relationship with me. And I even had to stop him at one point. I said, hey, they're getting ready to say a prayer and close the casket there. You might want to go in that room with your dad. And I had to just pause him right there. And he's like, oh, sorry, I'm not concentrating here. Thank you. So he left. He went into that room. And so when you can build a relationship to the point where you become part of their family, when you become that person that they can go to just to talk. I have clients that just call me up they just want to talk. Sometimes they just want to download their stress or whatever they're dealing with in their business. Sometimes they're struggling with whatever hardship it might be, and they'll call me up just so that they can talk to me because they don't know who else to talk to.
Well, what you're describing there is, I think, something that we always need to remember is, as much as this is an accounting business and we're dealing with numbers and such, this is still also a people business. And I think you gave a great example of how over time we can build wonderful relationships with our clients that's far different than just working with them on the financials. It's helping them and getting to know them at a personal family level and such. So that's a great story, and I appreciate you doing what you did there, because that's where we need to be with our clients. Is we need to be there at more than just the financial level. So that's a great example of that. Here's the next question: mentors. You shared some names earlier. I'm sure you've worked with many. Give me a reason as to why a mentor has been important to you, and an example of how they've helped you in your life.
Yeah, I've had several mentors that I've worked with that have helped me. For example, Alan Bostrom, when we first started, we were learning. We were trying to get things up and going. We were trying to figure out how to get some of the first clients. And as we worked with him, he was just really took some time personally to kind of give us some guidance and direction and give us different suggestions. And then as we started building the business, we had Larry Cox with Larry Cox and Associates. He's a CPA. He's been a good friend of ours now for 17 years, and he's always given us little tips and ideas and little suggestions on different things that we can do and we can improve. And to the point that with one of my clients, we had a meeting at the CPA's office. And one of my clients, as we're sitting down, we're having a discussion back and forth, and we walked out, and the client said, "Man, you had just as many suggestions and just as many ideas as the CPA did. That's great that you guys have such a good relationship in there and that you guys had so many good suggestions." And, there's Dwayne Acey with Squire and Company, Jeff Rowley from Hawkins Cloud and Sinister, Jeff Heath with Heath and James Company. All of these people were good mentors, just kind of, helping us to run the business more efficiently, to manage things more efficiently. But they've also just given us little tips in real life, like other things that we just needed some additional advice from. And I really appreciated that.
Give me an example of something you've learned from one of those mentors and how it might apply to your business, either personally or professionally.
One of the things that they taught us is some of this management accounting side of the business that's helped us in helping some of these clients. So they taught us more about some of the financial ratios and what we need to understand about them, how it works. For example, understanding some of the different cash flow ratios, understanding profitability ratios and different things like that. They've helped us with different Excel spreadsheets. Different advice on different types of calculations and how to put things together. So it's just been one little thing after another on some of the CFO level type things that they've, helped us with. But I think overall it's, how to deal with some of the relationships with people as well and to work with them. And so, kind of going back, I don't know if I can remember exactly those conversations and what it was that made the difference. But I just remember them, supporting us, helping us out, and helping to teach us along the way so that we could become better management accountants.
Well, I'll just sum it up and say it's obvious that you didn't do this on your own. You were willing to take advice, listen, get suggestions, and put yourself out there and be vulnerable so that you could get the input that oftentimes others are willing to provide. And so that's something that I'm sure led to you having the confidence to go out there and do the business as you have and grow it like you have done. So well done. Let me do this. I'm going to just kind of wrap this up. I'm going to summarize a few things here and come back to Shannon for kind of a closing thought. But before I give a summary, I'd like to point out that Shannon's actually offered something that I think would be worth considering. He basically has with his company the ability for you to schedule a 30-minute Q&A consultation session on how to obtain higher quality clients to get paid what you're worth. So if you're interested in learning more how you can confidently and competently go out there and offer quality accounting services, I'll put in the episode description information as to how you can book that 30-minute appointment with Shannon to speak with him directly. In that, you can have basically a Q&A session to help you apply what he's learned in his business within your own company and pick the brain of someone that's been doing this nearly 20 years. The other thing that I would like to point out is in this, we actually have a link for an ebook, something that I would highly recommend you consider. It's an ebook called In the Black, 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. It is literally the 9 principles that you need to apply not only in your company, but also to help your clients with so that they can make profit a priority, something that's deliberate and intentional. And so what I would encourage you to do is go to the episode description and get the information you need in order to book that Q&A session with Shannon, as well as get your free copy of the book In the Black. And with that, get the support that you're needing to actually work on your business. Now, that being said, let me just kind of summarize a few things. Obviously, in the conversation, we talked about Shannon starting his business with his wife. He didn't really see himself as an accounting professional, but with his wife doing as well as she did academically and things as they kind of unfolded, it naturally progressed to them starting their business. And nearly 20 years later, they've had an excellent run of it. They've experienced various changes within the economy and they've had to adapt, and they've done that. But more importantly is they actually help their clients do the same. And as they needed to, they got more consultative in the services that they were offering. It wasn't just preparing the financial reports, but they admittedly did things that were needed for their clients to be more successful, to literally help them be more informed to make the financial decisions they needed to be profitable. The other thing that I'd like to point out is he was very complimentary to mentors. And I think a lot of times what we try to do is really do things on our own. There's a sense of independence that oftentimes exists when running a business. You're proverbially at the top, obviously, all alone. It's lonely at the top is the phrase, but it doesn't have to be that way. There are definitely people out there that you can work with that are mentors, coaches, individuals that can assist you in what it is you're trying to accomplish to ensure that you actually avoid some of the pitfalls that are out there, that minefield of starting and running and operating a successful business. And by working with people that have done this before, you can definitely succeed. So keep that in mind, and I'll put some information in the episode description related to mentoring and coaching as well that you can benefit from. So all that being said, Shannon, do you have a final thought?
Yeah, I wanted to share with you just a kind of a funny joke, if that's all right.
Please.
A lot of people look at accountants a lot of times as these serious people, but accountants can be funny. And, at this time right now, there's a lot of zombies out there, right? We got the zombie apocalypse coming in, right?
Okay.
And I wanted to ask, have you ever heard about a zombie CPA?
No, I have not heard of a zombie CPA.
He charges an arm and a leg. Enjoy that during the Halloween season.
There you go. All that to get to the brain, I guess. Well, Shannon, this has been awesome. I appreciate having you on the show. I think the world of you. I know you've done a lot, and I think what you and your wife Tina have accomplished is amazing. So I appreciate the insights you shared today. Let me just share with our listeners. Obviously, this is one episode of many, so there are others that I would encourage you to listen to. Also, subscribe to the podcast so that you can get notified as to when others are released. We tend to release one every single week to help you actually hear from the experts on what it is they're doing in their business. But at the same time, I want you to also realize that if you're interested in applying these principles in your business, you can contact us at universalaccountingschool.com or give us a phone call at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care and have a great day and be safe out there.